Hey Gwenters, and welcome back for another episode of Gone Gwenting. Today, I just want to recap very quickly in this video what has happened in the last few hours regarding the broken elephant. Now, broken elephant could be interpreted a couple of different ways. I interpreted it the wrong way initially, but I still want to say this card is not working as well as it should be. So here, I got a response back. Look, it is working as accordance to the design when it's played between two soldiers. The crew ability kicks in. It gets boosted by 8 without damaging adjacent units. I just want to point out, I got a great comment here from Gail Redman. He received the same explanation, but I think this should be written how he's saying, right? Crew don't damage adjacent units and boost self by 8 instead. The instead kicker for these keywords can be done multiple ways depending on which card it is, and I think just make it more clear. Especially for this one, because boost is used in each line, it should be more clear. With all of that said, elephant is reworked in a way that is basically trash in my opinion. There's one deck I think it could work in that I'll just kind of highlight. I'm going to still be tweaking it. I'll still be working on it, see if I can get some wins with it, but it has not been very effective. Basically your tall play here is elephant. You need to have one of 4 options in order for it to be the final play of the game. And if you don't have one of those options, you have a tall unit at 16 that's super weak to Igni. It's weak to a reset, going back down to only 8. You might as well play Bloody Baron for fewer provisions, have a reset ability as an offensive card on your enemy with the weakness of using order, right? So, and those 4 options that you have are useful for a bunch of other scenarios or just not that great in a deck, right? So number 1, you have Siege Support, which can give Zeal. You can have 2 of those in a deck because they're bronze cards. And then you have Vess. You can only have 1 of those in your deck because she's gold. And candidly, Vess is pretty garbage in my opinion. As far as provision cost goes, we'll pull her up just so you guys can see. But Vess is this 8 provision card. She's 5 points, does 2 damage, and gives Zeal. So she plays for 1 fewer points than Siege Support does, right? And I've talked about this. I know anybody who's seen my videos, you know I love Siege Support. Siege Support always plays for 4 points because you can give that boost or the charge. The only exception is when he's the first unit played, which you may want to do from time to time depending on what kind of tempo you're trying to build up. But he gets that Zeal for 1 extra point regardless. The other way is by coming in here and using Inspired Zeal, which is just a terrible trade-off for a leader ability, right? So you boost a Northern Realms unit and give it Zeal, you get 3 charges. It restricts you to only 15 provisions. In fact, Royal Inspiration is better. You get more boosts over the course of the game with Royal Inspiration than you do with Inspired Zeal. And Inspired Zeal works with like a few key cards. This is most of the criticism that has been aimed at Viraxis is also applicable for Inspired Zeal, right? There's only so many order cards that you really want to use right away as Northern Realms, and a lot of that is kind of fixed by formation, candidly, right? You can put them on the ranged row, or you can put them on the melee row, depending on which, if you want the boost or the ability to act right away. And then the final way to solve this is by Idlico, that new Northern Realms unit that we have all seen as part of the expansion. Sorry, not Ildico, not Idlico. Ildico, human mage, she gives 5 boost, and then if she's inspired, meaning that if she's boosted, then you can play a Northern Realms unit with Zeal. I will say she is a huge target, right? So not only does she give that 5 boost, but this inspired play that unit with Zeal makes it so she's a big target for the enemy. It's hard to get her to stay boosted at the beginning of your turn. Basically, you have to have thrown out so many targets that your opponent just gives up or runs out of removal cards in order for you to use her. Even if you put somebody behind a defender, there's a lot of ways to deal with defenders nowadays. Granted, she does play to either row, so at least she's not row restricted, but she is hard to play with. And War Elephant, in my opinion, is this slow, because of that, is this very slow play for a mediocre number of points, right? I had a couple of people post or message me personally and say, well, how many points do you think it should play for? And my argument was, well, at least as many as Ragnar. right? I mean, like, how hard is it to get Ragnar to 16? Not that hard. You just need 5 shields. That's a 15 boost right there, and then he goes up to 19 points. You can get to 16 points just with 4 shields, right? So a 12-point boost. That's it. You just need 4 Immortal Cavalry. That's 2 cards played, which is basically the equivalent of how I would suggest playing this new elephant, which is with Carrack Frigate. So I think that was what their idea was here, right? Because Carrack Frigate is a siege engine, you can play that, use these volunteers, and then put the War Elephant between the volunteers. But you're going to need more soldiers, because in order to get multiple volunteers, you have to have a crew, meaning you have to have a soldier on the left side of Carrack Frigate that doesn't get removed in order for its leader ability to refresh and get more of those volunteers. And again, you would still have to wait to play the War Elephant's ability if you didn't have the ability to play it right away. So again, this is a lot of... I just feel like this happens with Northern Realms, where we get things that we're told are going to be cool, that are going to work really well, that are going to synergize, and then they just don't work very well with Northern Realms cards, right? So I think the other play that I would make with War Elephant is put it between 2 Cadweni Cavalry. Now, I know last video I said, please fix this, put in Soldier. Well, now that you have made Elephant, in my opinion, worse than before, right? I would rather stick it between Immortals and Immortal Cavalry to get the boost on Immortal. Now I can put a Cadweni Cavalry on the left side and an Immortal on the right side, but people like to remove the Cadweni Cavalry because they do have this passive boost, right? And especially if you have like Lady of the Lake, or if you have Cintron Artificer, where that's giving you shields, it just makes it so that the Elephant no longer works well in Ragnar decks. That's just the truth, right? It just doesn't work in Ragnar decks anymore, which means that it doesn't actually synergize with any of the Immortals, which means that it doesn't actually synergize with any of the cards that came out in its expansion. It's pretty sad, because the other option here, you'd think like Caravan Vanguard. Oh, well, that would work, right? Well, the thing with Caravan Vanguard is these are just human. They're not soldier. So if you played Elephant between 2 Caravan Vanguards, it would actually damage both of them. So you're no longer getting good synergy with any of the Merchants of Ophir packs. And these Ophiri units are not playing well together. And for me, that's unfortunate. I also think, somebody commented on, well, you would want to have your elephants protected by troops. No, you wouldn't, right? I mean, this is like the Battle of Cannae, when Scipio Africanus sets up his troops to lure in Hannibal's elephants. He then throws spears at them with a collapsing formation. That way the elephants feel like they're about to trample the ranks of his men. They don't. His spears pierce the elephants. They get scared, freak out, turn back around, and trample Hannibal's own men, sending them into disarray and leading to a total rout of his people, especially since they had lost their cavalry due to bribery concerns. Anyway, happy to talk about that. Maybe I'll have a separate podcast on Roman history. Just know that you would never put your infantry next to elephants. And I like this idea of, look, if you're going to have the elephant smash things, you have to be willing to sacrifice them. Or use magic spells to protect those things. Or in the case of Immortals, have what is essentially a card that feels like an endless horde of individuals that can't be stopped, right? So I like that. I like that synergy more. I think that feels more real. So I think the happy medium, hearing what other people are saying about, hey, how many points do you think it should play for? Look, you have a point there. Though I do think it should play for more points than Glusty Warp or Heimdall. I mean, it's a freaking elephant, right? But I'll set all of that aside. We'll set aside the fact that the Great Oak can actually play for more points. We'll set aside the fact that Drog can play for more points. That's fine. Let's instead just change this crew. Instead of being this boost self by 8 instead, at a minimum it should be changed to reflect the proper language here by, just like Gail said, it should say that in boost self by 8 without damaging units instead, just to make this more clear. But I think crew should instead be zeal. I think that crew should give the elephant the ability to use this right away. So it's synergized with shield decks. It would require some setup, but it would be a setup that you can manufacture a little bit better over a turn, where if you have a lot of shielded units, you can replace them pretty easily without having to use Inspired Zeal, which is one of the worst leader abilities for Northern Realms, without having to add in Vess, which is one of the worst characters for Northern Realms, without having also to use your siege supports, which you might rather use with Onseus or with Visigaird, or with any of the other formation characters you'd like to play to range throw, or with like Lyrian Arbalest in an early turn, because it is a bronze unit. So, you know, I think that would be better. It doesn't force War Elephant in as penultimate play, setting it up for a counter from your enemy's return play. It also doesn't force you to have War Elephant to be last say as much either, right? You can do stuff in the second round where you can go Immortal Cavalry, bam, play down War Elephant, bam. And if you use Amphibious Assault, you know, we're still gonna get a pretty tall play. It's gonna be 16 plus 9 because those shields are gonna deflect the damage. So it's still 25 points. That's pretty good cadence. And that plays a little bit better than Saris, though I do wanna say Saris is 1 fewer provision points, and she also is a thinning card. So even if you're just playing Saris without the Lippy flip, you're still getting, you know, 4 plus 8 plus the 3 damaged unit. So you right there, I mean, she's a 15-point play. I mean, and that's only one play. I just think War Elephant, they should have put a little bit more thought into creating an amazing tall character for Northern Realms. Who else do we have? You know, there's nobody else who makes high tempo, quick plays. Sure, we have Vernon Roach Merciless, but there's no way other than Inspired Zeal or Siege Support, the same problem. Even Ildiko doesn't work because she doesn't give Zeal to the summoned unit. She only gives Zeal to played units. So there's a lot of problems I see with that. And then one last thing I really want to pair onto this video, if you're still watching, Bellahun. I really, you know, he's a lot of fun. You can do some stuff with him, but I think that he should be more on par with veteran status for Skellige. I think veteran status is a cool, fun new way to change the base value of a unit, and I think Bellahun should do the same thing. It would make it so Northern Realms is no longer so vulnerable to Yrden. It also makes him really truly valued at this 9 provision point. I mean, sure, you can play him with like Redanian Knights or with poor effing infantry. You can do a lot of like the 1-point units to get them boosted up right away. I also like him with Nautilus. Yeah, those are good, but when you play him with Tridem infantry, it doesn't count as a boost. So they're gonna go to 5, but they won't proc any damage because it's not a boost. He just sets their power to 5. Kind of like Imlerith sets a unit's power to 7. And I was a little bit frustrated about that. I almost made another video about how that was a glitch, but kind of realized the Imlerith synergy and caught myself a little earlier than I did with War Elephant. Though again, War Elephant, in my opinion, can be read both ways, but it can be read both ways. So this isn't necessarily glitched. And I apologize for anyone who felt the same level of anger that I did, but I do want to say you should feel validated. Look at this card art. I mean, this guy is not playing nicely with the soldiers next to him, yours or your enemies. Like, an elephant is not concerned, especially a war elephant of this magnitude and size, is not concerned with the troops next to him. So he needs to be better paired, better synergy. It just needs to work better. If you're going to rework a huge card like this, then rework it so that it has better synergy within the faction. That's just my opinion. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll have some more videos coming out that'll be a little more fun, a little bit more engaging. You might notice on the left-hand side I have an all-out charge version 2.0, and we will be running that next. But for now, get out there and keep on gwenting.